It's August 2023 and I'm looking down on the Thames from the centre of world time, 0 degrees east, 0 degrees west in Greenwich. Five and a half miles east from the centre of London, Greenwich has been an important maritime and royal town for centuries. Watling Street, the Roman road from the Kent coast at Dover through London to the Welsh borders, passes over Blackheath, the high ground directly behind modern-day Greenwich, with both Roman ruins and possible remains of Saxon tumuli having been discovered in Greenwich Park. As late as Henry V's reign in the early 15th century, Greenwich was still just a fishing town with a safe anchorage in the Thames. Things changed shortly after with the creation of the Palace of Placentia, otherwise known as Greenwich Palace, in 1447. Greenwich Palace was the birthplace of Henry VIII and his two daughters, Mary and Elizabeth. Following its demolition after the English Civil War, the site of the palace was replaced by the Royal Naval Hospital for Sailors, designed by Sir Christopher Wren and his assistant Nicholas Hawksmoor. The hospital, which went on to become the Royal Naval College and served as a military education establishment up until 1998. When royalty and admiralty were first here, the ancient parish of Greenwich was part of the Blackheath Hundred of Kent, but with the explosive growth of London during the 19th century, Greenwich was soon subsumed into the ever-expanding metropolis. But that wasn't before Greenwich became a popular resort in the century beforehand, with many grand Georgian houses and estates built around the town centre. In 1997, Maritime Greenwich was added to UNESCO's list of World Heritage Sites for the concentration and quality of buildings of historic and architectural interest. Into the 21st century, and with the boom of the Docklands on the opposite bank of the Thames, and the University of Greenwich and Trinity Conservatoire moving into vacant spaces in the old Royal Naval Hospital, the centre of Greenwich has continued to develop, with former wharfs and industrial areas becoming sleek apartment blocks and student halls of residence. The 20th century saw the gradual retreat of the Admiralty from Greenwich and its slow conversion into a key historical and museum quarter of the greater city, with the creation of the National Maritime Museum and the sighting of the Cutty Sark, one of the last tea clippers, in the town centre either side of the Second World War. Due to its location so close to the docks, the Second World War was not kind for town, with many bombs falling during the Blitz on Greenwich. On the 19th of March 1941, incendiary bombs landed on the roof of the parish church of St Alfege, causing the roof to collapse, burning into the nave. All the more serious considering the crypt was being used as an air raid shelter at the time. The church is dedicated to Alfege, Archbishop of Canterbury, and is reputed to be on the site of the location where he was martyred on the 19th of April 1012 by Danes who had kidnapped him from Canterbury in an attempt to extract a ransom. When that wasn't paid, he was killed. The original basic church on the site was rebuilt in 1290, and 200 years later, in June 1491, Henry Tudor, second son of Henry VII, was baptised there. With the death of his older brother 11 years later, he became the heir to the English throne, ascending to become Henry VIII in 1509. Due to its royal connections, the church proved to be a popular location for burials, with large numbers interred both inside and in the grounds of the church. This turned out to be the undoing of this building, as it dramatically undermined the church's foundations, and during a storm in 1710, the medieval church collapsed. Designs for a new church were drawn up quickly after the collapse by Nicholas Hawksmoor, with building work on the current church beginning in 1712, with most of the construction completed in just 2 years, though the building wasn't consecrated until 1718. 55 years later, in 1773, the current market hall, located a short distance away from the church, opened. Whilst a market has existed in Greenwich since the 14th century, it moved to this fixed location at the end of the 18th century and continues to operate to today, those these days catering more for the passing tourist trade than the grocery needs of the locals. The market rights rest with the Commissioners of Greenwich Hospital, also known as the Old Royal Naval College, which occupies a large river frontage on the site of the former Greenwich Palace. Just behind the hospital is the building of the Royal Hospital School. The school was established by a royal charter in 1712 to provide assistance and education to the orphans of seafarers in the Royal and Merchant Navies. In 1933, the school relocated from Greenwich to Holbrook on the River Stour, close to Ipswich and Suffolk, leaving the building empty and available for alternative use. In 1934, the National Maritime Museum was created by an Act of Parliament, with much of the funding coming from donations by Sir James Caird, who, after accumulating a significant fortune in business, particularly shipping and sea trade, became interested in preserving British naval and shipping memorials. He previously provided the largest donation to the funds to repair and restore Nelson's flagship, HMS Victory, in the 1920s. In 1927, with initial interest in setting up a national museum for preserving Britain's maritime history, Caird joined the Board of Trustees. When the opportunity arose to reuse the now vacant buildings for Royal Hospital School, Caird offered to fund the entire cost of renovating the building to serve as a museum. Alongside funding the renovation, he also started to purchase a wide range of historical artefacts, books, globes, nautical instruments, artwork and models. In total, he is estimated to have spent at least £300,000 on artefacts and £80,000 on renovation works, a sum close to £35 million in 2023 prices. With the renovation works completed, the museum was opened by King George VI in April 1937 in his first public act as king, 3 weeks before his coronation. Today, the museum houses a still growing collection of artefacts arranged into themes, including the Tudor and Stuart period, Atlantic region, polar worlds, and the opportunity to take your hand as the captain of a ship on a large simulator. The museum is also home to the only royal commission that J.M.W. Turner received, the Battle of Trafalgar, which is housed in its own special gallery. The museum's London gallery reflects back on the home city of the museum and the role that the city, once the most important port on the planet, played in maritime history. The museum is also now home to the dramatic Baltic Exchange memorial glass. Stained glass that was originally installed in the Exchange's City of London offices in 1922 to pay tribute to the 61 members of the Baltic Exchange who lost their lives during World War I. At 9:20 p.m. on the 10th of April 1992, the day after the UK's general election, the biggest bomb detonated on mainland Britain since World War II was set off by the Provisional IRA outside the Baltic Exchange, killing 3 people, injuring 91 and causing so much damage to the building that reconstruction was eventually ruled out, with the Gherkin eventually being built on the vacant site. Surprisingly, the glass was only superficially damaged and after restoration work was put on display in the museum where it hangs to today. For any successful maritime nation, knowing where you are at sea is vitally important, whether that be by calculating your location by using the sun during the day or by using the stars at night. Tracking your position north or south on the planet had been mastered by antiquity. It's the east-west bit that gets more complicated, and the solution to that conundrum can trace its roots to Greenwich and the Royal Observatory, located on the hill overlooking the river and town. The Royal Observatory Greenwich was founded by King Charles II in 1675, who created the position of Astronomer Royal to serve as director of the observatory at the same time, appointing John Flamsteed as the first post holder. The first building of the observatory is now called Flamsteed House and houses the main exhibitions of the museum that now occupies the site. The role of the Astronomer Royal was to apply himself with the most exact care and diligence to the rectifying of the tables of the motions of the heavens and the places of the fixed stars, so as to find out the so much desired longitude of places for the perfecting of the art of navigation. To assist with this, in 1714, the Longitude Act established the Board of Longitude and the Longitude Rewards. The rewards were a series of prizes offered by the government for a simple and practical method of precise determination of a ship's longitude at sea. By the time of the Act, calculating longitude on land had been pretty much solved using observations of the Galilean moons of Jupiter as an astronomical clock, but trying to take these observations from ships at sea resulted in failure, and as long oceanic voyages increases, it was proving to be lethal, with land out of sight for weeks, making maintaining longitudinal awareness at sea impossible. The original awards offered were for £10,000, about 1.5 million today, for a method that could determine longitude within 1 degree, about 60 nautical miles. This rose to £15,000 for getting within 40 minutes, and £20,000, around 3 million today, for getting within 30 minutes or half a degree. The most successful winner was John Harrison, who, over his life, was awarded £23,065. Aged just 21 when the Longitude Act was passed, he would spend the next 45 years perfecting his design of timekeepers. He received his first reward in 1737, but the final payment didn't arrive until he was 80. He was first awarded £250 in 1737 in order to improve on his H1 sea clock, which led to the construction of H2. A further £2,000 over the years between 1741 and 1755 allowed for the construction and completion of H2 and the next generation H3. Between 1760 and 1765, he received another £2,865 for the expenses involved in the construction and ocean trials of his H4 Sea Watch. In a move that would surprise no modern person, the UK government decided to shortchange Harrison and only awarded him the £10,000 prize, despite the H4 performance exceeding the accuracy of less than half a degree. Eventually, Harrison had to appeal to the King to get the rest of the award out of the government. Resolving longitude put a zero mark east and west on the planet, and naturally Greenwich became home to that mark, the prime meridian. With the coming of trains speeding up both travel and communication, it started to become necessary to unify time, first within the country and later around the world, to avoid the good people of Bristol missing their trains because Bristol time was 10 minutes behind London. Given there was already a prime meridian, Greenwich was therefore also chosen to be the 0 point of time, and whilst these days it's called UTC, midday at UTC 0 is also midday Greenwich Mean Time. The Observatory continued to be the country's main centre of astronomy, with a great equatorial telescope being added in 1893 up until the end of the Second World War. In 1947 it was decided to relocate the observatory to Herstmonceux Castle in East Sussex due to the growing problem of light pollution in London, though it wasn't until 1957 that the observatory in Greenwich was fully decommissioned. Though the general cloud cover of the United Kingdom meant Herstmonceux only housed the telescopes for a short period of time, before telescopes and all future observations were relocated to the Roque de los Muchachos Observatory on the island of La Palma in the Canaries. Time continues to be celebrated every day at Greenwich with the Time Ball. Since 1833, the red ball on top of the Flamsteed House is raised to its upper position, starting at 12:55, before reaching the top at 12:58, and then holding there until exactly 1 p.m. when it drops. Ball drop is 1 p.m. all year round, so technically in the summer months it's midday Greenwich Mean Time, whilst everyone else is on British summertime. For those who don't want to pay to get into the observatory, but still want to prove they've stood in both the eastern and western hemispheres, the small gate below the observatory leads you onto a path where the meridian line extends from beyond the observatory grounds. The Royal Observatory sits in Greenwich Park, which as a former Royal Hunting Park is now part of the Royal Parks of London. The role of Ranger of Greenwich Park has existed as a royal appointment since 1690, and for most of the 19th century the position came with use of the mansion of Chesterfield House, though today it's commonly known as Ranger's House. The London County Council purchased the house in 1902 and used it as a council sports club and tea room. Over the years, the collection that had been built up in the house was dispersed, and by the time it passed into the care of English Heritage in 1986, the building was empty, with no chance of pulling the collection back together. At the start of the 21st century, the art and antiques collection of gold and diamond magnate Sir Julius Werner was saved to the nation by the government, but with his former houses of both Luton Hoo and Bath House not available to house the collection, the decision was taken to unite the stately home without collection with the collection without a home, and since 2002 the Ranger's House has been home to the Werner collection. Next time, I continue my exploration of this corner of London by taking the views from the top of a once condemned folly, explore an Art Deco medieval palace, and visit some of London's llamas.